Please share with us what Ronald Reagan means to you.
What Ronald Reagan means to me, as a son of the heartland, as someone that believes in the boundless potential of the American people, is that one man from a humble beginning can not only change America, but can change the world. Ronald Reagan's the reason why I became a Republican. I started in politics as a Democrat in my teenage years, but when I heard the vision, the values, the optimism of Ronald Reagan, I joined the Reagan Revolution, and my life has never been the same.
President Reagan faced down an authoritarian regime that sought to change our way of life. He faced down a faltering economy and a sense among some that our best days were behind us. What lessons from President Reagan's presidency do you see as most relevant to today's challenges?
Well, I honestly believe that the agenda that Ronald Reagan brought after years of malaise and failure in the 1970s, record inflation, gasoline prices through the roof, embarrassment on the world stage, I believe those ideas are just as relevant today as they were when he took office in 1981, because as the president would be very quick to say, those ideas and values and priorities didn't come from his brow. They came from the heart of a great nation, a commitment to American leadership in the world, a strong defense, a commitment to limited constitutional government and fiscal responsibility and growth, a commitment to the sanctity of life and traditional values. Those are all the same issues that I believe in, and the same priorities that will answer the challenges facing the American people today. Some people think those ideas, just like Ronald Reagan's papers, belong in a museum. I believe those ideas belong at the very center of American public life, and I'm determined to do my part to make sure that what really began in earnest for our party and our movement in the Reagan presidency and has animated our party and strengthened our country for decades will strengthen our country for years to come.
President Reagan spoke of America as a shining city on a hill. Is America today still that shining city? And what would you do as president to keep it shining brightly in the eyes of the American people and the world?
The American people are the most freedom-loving, faith-filled, innovative, hardworking, generous people the world has ever known. Ronald Reagan also knew that. Even after the disappointment of the 1970s and a failed Democrat administration, he knew we were better than that, and so do I. I think our challenge today is to take those ideals and those values of the American people and put them back at the heart of the American government. Ronald Reagan did that in 1980, and he revived America, revived our economy, had America standing tall in the world, and set into motion policies on the world stage that would see to the collapse of the Soviet Union a few years after he left office. I think as we see war raging in Eastern Europe, China menacing in the Asia Pacific, as we see inflation ravaging the family budgets of Americans, a war on energy driving prices up, a crisis at our border, a crime wave in our cities, now more than ever, we need to return to those time-honored, proven conservative principles that Ronald Reagan understood as American principles, put them into practice, and I know the best days for this nation are yet to come.
Of all the topics that are going to come up on the Reagan Library debate stage, what key issue do you want to make sure the American people hear from you about?
Well, Ronald Reagan gave a speech in 1964 about a time for choosing. And he set the stage for change that would come in America a decade and a half later. But I think we've come, as I said in a speech in New Hampshire recently, to a Republican time for choosing. I think the Republican Party today has to decide whether or not we're going to chart a future based on the timeless principles that Ronald Reagan governed on, a commitment to American leadership in the world, a strong defense, limited government, free market economics, and traditional values, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism unmoored to conservative principles, embrace isolationism and appeasement on the world stage, actually embrace the growth of government, ignore the national debt, and walk away from values. It's that Republican time for choosing that I think will not only determine the success of our party in 2024, but But I also believe it'll lay a foundation for whether or not we provide the kind of leadership that not only earns the right to lead America, but also has the right policies and principles to bring America back. I know the American people. I believe the American people still believe in those timeless ideals, and I'm going to continue to work my heart out to make that choice clear to the people of this country every day.
Well, last question, Mr. Vice President. There are many candidates in this race. Why should Republican primary voters vote for you?
In 2016, Donald Trump promised to govern as a conservative. And for 4 years, we did govern as conservatives. And I'm incredibly proud of our record, reviving our economy, rebuilding our military, standing up for our liberties and our values and the right to life. But what Republican voters deserve to know is that Donald Trump and many of his imitators in this race make no such promise today. In fact, I see the former president and others walking away from that conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan brought to the fore, but has really been at the heart of the American experiment since our founding. And when people look at that, and when people look at moving forward on a conservative agenda, I hope that they'll see in my life as a former governor, a former vice president, someone that served as a leader in Congress for 12 years, that I'm actually the most qualified, the most consistent, the most tested conservative in this race. And for Americans that want to see us return to those principles that began to strengthen our nation in our 4 years in office and brought America back in the 1980s, that they know that Mike Pence is the man for the job.
Thank you. You're always welcome back here at the Reagan Library. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great to be back.